The first tremor hit like a deep heartbeat under the earth, a pulse that went straight through my bones before I could even understand it. It was nighttime, and the fog covered the forest road where my truck had just broken down. The headlights barely lit the damp tree trunks. And the silence, that thick silence that only exists in remote woods, shattered instantly with a colossal crack, as if the world itself were splitting in two. I ran toward the road, breathing clouds of vapor into the cold darkness, when I saw her fall. Not falling like a tree, not like a rock breaking loose from a cliff. It was a slow fall, a painful one, as if her whole body were fighting to stay upright. First came the shadow, then the shape, and then the magnitude. A woman about 30 feet tall, leaning against a pillar of rocks as if it were an improvised chair. Her skin glowed under the moon with a warm, almost golden tone. Her eyes, the size of car headlights and filled with an indescribable sadness, looked at me with a mixture of surprise and relief. Before we begin, I ask that you subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and tell us where in the world you're listening from. This helps us bring you more stories like this. Let's go. Are you hurt? I asked, though the answer was obvious. Her left thigh was covered in a dark stain that slowly slid down to the ground like spilled ink. She barely nodded. Her breathing made the leaves of the nearby bushes tremble. "I need help," she murmured. Her voice was soft, but it echoed through the air naturally, as if the mountain itself repeated it. I approached, trembling not out of fear. Or maybe yes, a little. But something stronger than fear pushed me. That irrational feeling that she wasn't a threat, that, for some reason I couldn't explain, I was meant to be there. When I reached her side, my hands looked ridiculously small. I searched through my things, found a first aid kit, bandages, water. None of it was made for someone like her, but I tried anyway. I cleaned the wound carefully. She clenched her teeth and her face, impossibly beautiful, tightened in pain. "You're different from the others," she suddenly said. "Different how?" I asked, without stopping the bandaging. "You don't run, you don't scream. You don't look at me like I'm a monster, because you're not," I answered without thinking. Then I lifted my gaze and, for a moment, our eyes met. My voice shook as I added something that came out naturally, as if I had been waiting to say it. "You're breathtaking." She blinked. Then, a very slow smile began to form on her lips. A smile I didn't understand at the time, but one I would later wish I had never seen. "You're brave to say that," she said, tilting her head toward me. Her long, dark hair fell like a waterfall, grazing the ground. And honest, I tried to respond, but something in her gaze left me speechless. Her eyes weren't just looking at me. They were analyzing me, as if measuring my worth, my strength, even my weaknesses. "Your beauty is unmatched," I added awkwardly. "I've never seen anyone like you." She drew in a deep breath, as if my words had activated something inside her. A strange flicker crossed her eyes. It wasn't vanity or gratitude. It was something deeper, something that made my skin prickle. "Then you're ready," she whispered. "Ready for what?" I asked. I stepped back without meaning to, as if my body were reacting to signals my mind didn't understand yet. She extended a hand toward me. A massive hand, but delicate, with long fingers like flexible branches and nails that shimmered under the moonlight. "For what I truly came here to do with you," the wind stopped. The trees stopped swaying, and for an instant the night seemed to hold its breath. "What does that mean?" I asked, feeling a cold knot twist in my stomach. The giant smiled again, this time with a hint of mystery, almost tenderness, but with something else hidden behind it. "I'll reveal it. But first, you must promise you won't run." My heart pounded as if it wanted to burst out of my chest. I didn't know whether I should fear her or trust her. I didn't know if I had saved someone vulnerable, or awakened something that slept beneath the surface of a world I thought I understood. But she didn't look away. She waited for my answer, and with the weakest voice I had ever used, I said, "I promise." She lowered her face, bringing it closer to me like a descending moon. "Then listen carefully," she said with a deep whisper, "because my true plan begins with you." When the giant woman brought her face closer to mine, the air changed. I don't know how to explain it without sounding delusional, but it felt as if the entire forest leaned toward, expectant, listening. Her warm breath stirred my clothes, and the shine in her eyes reflected my own tiny, trembling figure, completely out of my element. "My plan," she said, pronouncing each word with a softness that contrasted with her colossal size, "didn't start today. It began long before you were born." A shiver ran through me. I didn't know what to expect. Part of me wanted to run, to escape from a revelation that felt far too big for my simple, ordinary life. But the other part, the part that had seen her pain, that had helped her without hesitation, that part kept me rooted to the damp ground. She placed the palm of her hand on the earth, just inches from my feet. It was a silent invitation to move closer, but also a reminder of the enormous distance between us. "Your world believes that my kind are only legends," she continued. "Shadows in old stories, beings who existed once and then vanished. But you're still here," I said, almost without thinking, staring at her wounds, at the way her entire body seemed caught between strength and fragility. She nodded, and the movement sent dust falling from the nearby branches. "There are few of us left. Very few, and we are in danger." The word danger echoed inside me. I didn't know why, but a sickening feeling rose in my throat, as if that confession touched something that shouldn't be heard at midnight in a forest. That seemed too alive. "Who hurt you?" I asked. "Was it another giant?" She shook her head slowly. "Humans, not all, but enough. They know about us. They know we possess something they want." Her eyes darkened not with anger, but with sorrow. A sorrow so ancient it felt older than the mountain behind us. "And what is it they want?" I asked. This time, she took several seconds to respond. She looked at the wound on her thigh, at the makeshift bandages, at my hands still stained with mud and dark blood. "What they want is the same thing I need from you." The temperature seemed to drop instantly. I felt like I was stepping into a place from which there would be no return. Part of me wanted to stop her. Another part, the inexplicable one, wanted to hear every syllable. "Me. What could I possibly have that you need?" She tilted her head, her hair falling like a silky mantle around her giant face. "It's not what you have, it's what you are." My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Centuries ago," she continued, "there was a connection between our species. A pact? Humans don't remember it, but we do." "A pact," I repeated. "Yes, every generation of giants chose a human. Not just anyone, but someone whose spirit could feel beyond fear. Someone capable of seeing us for what we are. Not monsters, not aberrations, but guardians." I swallowed. "Guardians of what?" She smiled. Not a triumphant smile, but a melancholic one, like someone who has lost too much of you, of your future, of something that could destroy you before you even see it coming. I stayed silent. I wasn't ready for answers like these. I didn't have enough questions to cover everything she was implying. "And that pact," I said with difficulty, "does it have something to do with me?" She lowered her gaze to me, and for a moment, I felt seen by a being who had lived through tragedies no human could ever imagine. "You saw me injured, vulnerable, and you still approached. That makes you the chosen one of your time." The word chosen fell over me like a weight, yet at the same time a strange warmth formed in my chest. "I didn't know, I just wanted to help." "That's exactly what makes you different," she said. "That's why I sought you out." I froze. I didn't know what scared me more. The idea that she had a plan for me, or the fact that, in some deep part of me, I wanted to be part of it. "You sought me," I whispered. "Yes," she said softly. "For days, weeks. The signs led me to you. And when I finally found you, I was attacked. They tried to stop me before I could speak to you." I took a deep breath, trying to gather my thoughts. "What do you want me to do?" I finally asked. She observed me in silence. Her enormous bright eyes seemed to hold stars I had never seen before. First she said, I need you to hear everything. But that's only possible in a safe place. Or she extended her massive hand toward me, palm open, inviting, let me take you. I stared at that immense hand, so close and so surreal. The decision was mine. And in that moment, I felt that whichever path I chose would change my life forever. The forest murmured again. The moon seemed to watch us from above. And I, with my heart hanging by a thread, could only say, if it's necessary, I'll go with you. Her lips curved into a soft, almost protective expression. Then prepare yourself. What I'm going to show you will change everything you think you know about this world. Her gigantic hand hovered in front of me, open like a living platform. For a few seconds, I just stood there, unable to move, feeling my breath grow shorter and shorter. It wasn't pure fear. It was that intoxicating mix of uncertainty, and the irrational feeling that my destiny had just shifted without asking for my permission. When I finally took a step and placed my foot on her palm, the surface of her skin was warm, surprisingly soft, with a slow pulse beneath it that vibrated like a distant drum under my boots. She closed her fingers around me with extreme care, as if she were holding a snowflake that could break apart with a sigh. I'll carry you gently, she murmured. And as she lifted me, the world transformed. The trees that once felt imposing became small, dark hedges. The forest road, the broken-down truck, my human fears, all of it stayed down there, tiny and irrelevant, while she raised me to her height. From up here, I could see the moon's reflection on the distant river, the fog dancing between the pines, and even the pale glow of some far-off town on the horizon. It was like seeing the world for the very first time from an angle humans were never meant to have. She began to walk, and each step sent a ripple through the ground. Her breath, deep and steady, blended with the sound of the night wind. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. I simply watched the powerful movement of her muscles. The way her hair swayed behind her like a dark ocean, the delicate way she shielded me with her other hand so the cold wind wouldn't hit me. Finally, I broke the silence. Where are we going? To a place where neither your people nor mine will find us, she answered without stopping. An ancient refuge. Does your people live there? The giant shook her head gently. Not anymore. We abandoned it long ago, when we understood that getting close to humans was too dangerous. For both species, I kept thinking about that. There was something painfully honest in her words. You said humans attacked you. Why? She drew in a long breath. Because they believe we carry something that can dominate them. Something they don't even understand. They call it strength, power, but it's none of that. I leaned forward, trying to see her face from where I stood. Then, what is it? The giant looked down at me. Her eyes shone with a mixture of tenderness and torment, as if she were deciding how much to reveal. Memory, she said at last. We remember. Not like you, who forget in a few generations what you once swore to protect. Memory of what? Of the pact. Of what we were to you, and what you were to us. But we also remember the day everything broke. A chill ran through me that didn't come from the wind. What happened that day? She didn't answer right away. She kept walking, silent, while the moonlight reflected off her wounded skin. I could feel her energy shift, as if the past still burned inside her. There was a chosen one, she finally said. Like you, a human with a noble heart, someone who tried to protect us. But his own people betrayed him. They used him as bait to trap us. My stomach tightened. And what happened to him? The giant exhaled slowly. He died defending us. He was the last one to do so. I stayed quiet. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was responsibility, one I hadn't asked for, but one that now weighed on me like an unavoidable truth. She held me closer to her chest as we crossed a narrow valley. From there, I could hear her heartbeat, a deep, steady rhythm that echoed like an ancestral drum. And you looked for someone to take his place, I asked. I searched because the fall of our bond didn't just affect us, she replied. Your world is on the edge of something it can't see. Something that can only be prevented if our species unite again. But we needed someone who could feel, not dominate. I swallowed my insecurity. And you think I can be that person? I don't think so, she said as she came to a stop. I know it. Before I could respond, the giant crouched down slowly and pushed aside a cluster of enormous rocks with one hand, revealing the entrance to a tunnel covered in vines and symbols carved into stone. A bluish light glowed from within, as if an ancient heart were beating beneath the mountain. Welcome to the sanctuary of the Guardians, she said. Here, I'll show you the truth that will change your world. She held me before the entrance, waiting for me to take the step. My previous life ended right then, and there was only silence like the universe itself was waiting for my decision. The inside of the sanctuary wasn't dark like I had imagined. The bluish light emanating from the walls seemed alive, breathing in sync with something I couldn't begin to understand. The giant woman bent down to enter, careful not to let her wound brush against the stone. Her steps echoed like contained thunder, making the ancient symbols carved into the walls tremble. I walked beside her hand, which she kept near the ground like a guiding rail I could lean on if I stumbled. Every few steps, she glanced at me, as if gauging my reaction to each new detail of the place. The tunnel opened into a massive natural cavern. Its ceiling was so high, it looked like it was holding up the sky. In the center lay a circular lake of crystalline water that emitted a faint glow, illuminating the chamber with dancing reflections. The giant sat down at the water's edge, carefully, as if entering a sacred temple. This is the origin of everything, she said, with a reverent voice. I approached the lake. Its surface was perfectly still, but when I leaned over it, I saw something impossible. It didn't reflect the cavern ceiling, but an unknown sky filled with constellations I had never seen before. Stars, forming paths, figures, warnings. What is this? I asked. She placed a giant hand on the water, which didn't break, but instead shimmered beneath her touch as if it recognized her. Memory, she said. Pure memory. Each generation of my kind carries fragments of what this world was, what it will be, and what could destroy it. Destroy it, I repeated, my throat suddenly dry. The giant nodded solemnly. The balance between our species broke hundreds of years ago. Since then, a force that had always been contained began to awaken. Humans believed we were the danger, but in truth, we are the only barrier between them and what sleeps beneath their own world. What exactly is it? She closed her eyes for a moment, like someone recalling an ancient wound. What you call progress doesn't always bring light. There are things humankind has approached too closely, powers humanity should never touch, and now they've gone too far. The cavern grew quieter, as if listening. I was sent to find the chosen one, she continued. The one human capable of renewing the pact, of restoring the broken bond, not for my benefit, but for both worlds. My hands trembled. But what does being the chosen one actually mean? The giant slid her hand toward me, not to lift me this time, but so I could touch it. I placed my palm against her finger, thicker than my torso. Her skin radiated a gentle warmth, comforting, almost familiar. It means joining your essence with ours, she said. It means opening your mind to our memory. And it means risking seeing things that could change you forever. What things? She leaned closer, her enormous face only a few meters from mine. Her eyes glowed like watery mirrors full of centuries. The truth of your world, the shadow that approaches, and the reason why we are disappearing. A chill ran through me. Disappearing. There are fewer than 10 guardians left on the entire earth, she confessed. And each one is being hunted. If we fall, you will fall after us. I couldn't breathe, so I murmured, that's why you sought me. Why you made that journey wounded, alone, risking everything. Yes, her voice softened. Because there was no other choice. She straightened slightly, placing her other hand on the ground. Her fingers curled gently, as if afraid my thoughts would slip into fear. But I didn't bring you here only for that, she added. I brought you because I want you to decide for yourself. I cannot force you to be part of the pact. I cannot impose it, the way humans once did. I stepped closer to the lake. The surface shifted instantly. This time it didn't show unknown stars. It showed my own face. Fragmented, multiplied, distorted by invisible ripples. This sanctuary will judge you, she said softly. Not by your strength or intelligence. Only by your intention. I turned to her. What do I have to do? The giant extended a hand toward the water and pointed to the center of the lake with a slow, solemn gesture. You only have to touch it. If the sanctuary accepts your spirit, the pact will awaken. If not, I swallowed. If not, she lowered her gaze and a veil of sadness crossed her face. The lake will show you what you must run from. My breath quickened. I approached the water. My reflection trembled with my hesitation. Before you touch it, she said in a deep voice, there is something else you must know. She leaned toward me. Her shadow covered the lake like an eclipse. When you called me beautiful, you awakened something that had been dormant for centuries. What did I awaken? She smiled with a hint of unsettling tenderness. The connection between us? My heart stumbled. No matter what the lake decides, she added, from this moment on, our destinies are intertwined. I stepped toward the glowing water, fully aware I was about to cross an invisible threshold, one from which I would not return the same. I'm ready, I whispered. The lake's surface began to shine brighter, and then I touched the water. The water was cold for only an instant, like the touch of ancient metal. Then something changed. A warm current rose through my arm, crossed my chest, and spread through my entire body as if a second heart had begun beating inside me. The lake's surface stopped being water. It became a liquid mirror, vibrant, absorbing my reflection until it turned into light. The giant woman stepped back slightly, watching with an expression of anxiety and solemnity I had never seen on her before. Let yourself go, she whispered, and her voice seemed to move all the air in the cavern. The light climbed up my fingers and then burst into a sequence of images that weren't visions. They were memories, not mine. I saw endless fields where enormous figures walked in harmony beside human villages that looked tiny next to them. I saw giants teaching humans to read stars that no longer exist, and humans offering seeds that could grow even in exhausted soil. It was a united world, live honest. Then the vision shifted. The sky turned gray, the mountains burned. Men with primitive weapons, driven not by malice but by fear, attacked the Guardians. Not out of evil, but because of humanity's most dangerous weakness, ignorance. I saw a rupture, a bridge collapsing between both peoples. And at the center of the image, I saw the previous chosen one, a young, brave man, offering his life to protect those no one else understood. His death was the spark that triggered the fall. The Guardians hid, humans forgot, and the shadow they had once held at bay began to wake. The vision darkened. In an infinite depth, like an ocean of darkness, something moved, something huge, something with no defined shape, like an ancient, hungry thought. I felt its presence without eyes, without face, an echo that made my spirit tremble. I pulled away from the water with a gasp, stumbling back. The contact had been too much. My chest felt tight, as if I'd inhaled centuries in a single breath. The giant was leaning toward me, tense, her expression full of worry. You saw it, she said. What threatens us all? I nodded, still shaking. It's not something we can fight with weapons. No, she said softly, only with union. I knelt beside the lake, trying to regain my breath. Then I noticed something strange. My hands still glowed with a faint blue light. The giant saw it too, and her eyes softened with a mix of relief and deep emotion. The sanctuary accepted you, she murmured. The pact was reborn through you. I said nothing. Part of me didn't know if that was an honor or too heavy a burden for a simple human. But before I could form a single thought, The giant leaned closer, bringing her enormous face near enough that I could see every detail in her eyes. Those deep windows full of worlds I was only beginning to understand. Now we are bound, she said, her low voice vibrating like an ancient chant. What you feel, I will feel. What I face, you will also face. I know, I said, shockingly. There was no fear in my voice. There was acceptance, and something else, a determination I never knew I had. The giant smiled with a tenderness that almost glowed. Then I am not alone. Nor am I replied. She extended her hand and let me climb back onto her palm. When she lifted me to her face, I saw a single tear, huge and shimmering, slide slowly down her cheek. It wasn't sadness, it was relief. It was hope. What happens now? I asked. Her expression shifted. The softness blended with something new. Resolve. Now we must find the other guardians, she said. We must gather them before the shadow grows strong enough to awaken. I looked toward the sanctuary's entrance, toward the night waiting outside. The wind had changed. I could feel it, as if the world itself had taken a deep breath, aware of the pact reborn, and me. What exactly is my role in all this? I asked. She lifted her face proudly, her presence filling the entire cavern. You are the bridge, the voice between our worlds, the protector of memory, and of what is to come. The lake's glow intensified suddenly, as if answering her words. The walls vibrated with ancient energy. My heartbeat matched its rhythm. There was no going back to my old life. I couldn't wake up tomorrow pretending I was still the same man who drove a truck through a dark forest. I'm with you, I finally said. No matter what happens. The giant nodded, and in her eyes I saw a strength capable of moving mountains and a humanity deeper than anything I had ever seen in someone of my own species. Then, she said, rising carefully while shielding me with her other hand, our journey begins. When we stepped out of the sanctuary, the moon lit her colossal figure as if it recognized her. The wind carried a new energy, and for a moment I thought I heard something ancient whispering through the trees. Acceptance, or warning. I looked toward the horizon. My life no longer belonged to me, and somehow that felt right. The giant looked down at me from above with a mix of affection, determination, and a mystery that was only beginning to unfold. This is just the beginning, she said, and I knew she was right. The bond was sealed. And the world, though it didn't know it yet, had just changed. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. It helps us keep bringing you more enchanting tales like this one to brighten your day. And tell us in the comments which city in the world you're listening from. See you next time.